Hello everyone, Richard here, and today we're going to be looking at two Zeds that specialize in area denial and just being a general pain in the ass, the Bloat and Siren. Both of these Zeds make a return from the first killing floor and function in a near identical way, using very powerful attacks that will make most perks keep their distance. The Siren is a modified clone of the Patriarch's wife, using sonic-based attacks in order to inflict damage, disrupt vision, and to neutralize explosives. Despite her small stature, her screams are extremely powerful thanks to Horzine's enhancements to her vocal cords. In-game, Sirens have the appearance of an emaciated and abused woman in a metal straitjacket, moving slowly towards players in a blind shuffle. Once a player is within 9 meters, she will begin to violently scream, damaging a player's health directly, regardless if they have armor. They will typically start appearing early on in-game, sometimes as early as Wave 2, depending on the game length, with their numbers only increasing as the difficulty ratchets up. While her attacks have a limited range of only around 8 meters, the attack is omnidirectional and can affect any player that is too close. Her screams are also very powerful and can quickly drain a full health player into critical levels in a single discordant hymn on as low as the hard difficulty. Her sonic attacks come in 4 waves, with each wave lasting roughly 0.5 seconds. Rockets, rifle grenades, and throwables will all be neutralized as well by a Siren scream if their paths intersect, making a Siren particularly annoying for low-level demos or those using fragmentation rounds. This sonic shield lasts 200 milliseconds after the Siren stops dealing damage, an important note if you wish to engage them with grenades or explosives. Despite their neglected appearance, Sirens are rather durable enemies, possessing 230 body health and 150 head health on all difficulties and player counts. They are also not vulnerable to any attacks, but resistant to microwave, explosive, piercing, fire, and toxic attacks. Attacks striking the Siren's head and neck will receive a 1.1 times multiplier to damage, while attacks striking her hips and chest will see their damage halved. Hitting anywhere else on the Siren will yield a neutral modifier for damage. Sirens, like most medium threat level Zeds, are fairly vulnerable to most afflictions and incapacitations, with perhaps the notable exception of Poison Panic. Flashbangs, freeze grenades, EMPs, and even exploding EDARs, assuming they are within range, should have no problem stunning a Siren with a single detonation. The Bloat, which is almost the polar opposite in physique, is one of the few Zeds that aren't produced via cloning, and instead are created via a horrific drug therapy on obese men. They retain their obesity and are able to spit a hazardous bile at any enemy that draws too close. In-game, they're one of the most easily identifiable Zeds, massive in both height and width. The Bloat is a hard target to miss even amongst a chaotic battlefield. They will spawn as early as Wave 1, regardless of your difficulty level. The Bloat's attacks are much shorter range, able to vomit on targets as far as 3.5 meters away. Unless killed by decapitation, bleed out, or fire, they will also have a chance to explode in a surge of acid, dealing damage within 5 meters. Exploding Bloats also release puke mines, small blobs of acid that can be triggered if stepped on or damaged by a player. While they deal less damage than the vomit, at least on higher difficulties, they do have a longer range of 4.5 meters. All of these attacks will also obscure the player's vision with a thick green slime, severely limiting your ability to respond and making you vulnerable to a second helping of bile. His vomit attacks are by far the worst, however, dealing an incredible amount of damage on high difficulties, and is a common cause for early game losses. Armor, however, does limit the power of the bile attacks, even more so for SWATs and survivalists who can equip heavy armor. The Bloat is a significantly more durable enemy than the Siren, with their health increasing with every subsequent difficulty level. They do, however, have a very vulnerable head, with their bodies having anywhere from 6 to 6.5 times more health than their head. Bloats are also very resistant to almost all types of damage, being only neutral to fire, grenade duds, freeze, and EMP. All other attacks will have their damage reduced by some degree, typically damage getting multiplied by 0.3 or 0.35. Some notable exceptions include the 9mm pistol, which only gets multiplied by 0.65, microwave, explosive, and the AR-15. Both piercing and toxic attacks get reduced the most, however not by a much higher margin than most attacks. The Bloat's hitboxes are fairly straightforward, with headshots and body shots being practically unmodified, while all damage striking the cleavers will get reduced by a staggering 80%. In short, the Bloat is a very durable enemy if you try to shoot his body or his cleavers, so the best bet is to use fire or go for headshots. On early waves, the best weapons will probably be the 9mm, caulk and burn, and the AR-15. Bloats are an interesting enemy when it comes to incapacitations, as they are more resistant than most enemies to affliction like stun and especially stumble and gun hit. This is likely due to his rather large size, making him very tenacious. Other common afflictions like EMP and freeze will affect Bloats normally, making them easy to stun for perks like Sharpshooter and Berserker, although perhaps excluding the Zerk, your grenades should be saved for more dire threats. The Bloat and Siren, while very different in size and method of attack, function in very similar roles. While not immediate or imposing threats, they act as landmines and area denial enemies, blocking potential escape routes or punishing those who kite too haphazardly. Both should be a high priority threat in the absence of large Zeds like Skrakes and Pounds, as they do have an annoying habit of disrupting teams' strategy if ignored for too long. Berserkers, especially at lower levels, may have the biggest trouble with these Zeds, since they'll have to step in to the danger zone, usually, in order to engage. Make sure you have an active parry bonus or a nearby medic in order to absorb the additional damage. Otherwise, even a full HP Bloat can be decapped in as little as 2 hits with a basic Krovel on Hell on Earth. Sirens are a little bit easier to manage at close range, mostly due to their frail nature, making them vulnerable to a quick melee head bash to disrupt or outright stop a sonic attack. In addition to shutting them down for a brief moment, it will also leave them vulnerable to a counterattack, so be ready to follow up. While the Demolitionist can be hard countered by a Siren, the inclusion of sonic resistant rounds can nullify this entirely. Alternatively, if you're using frag rounds, you'll likely be keeping your distance from enemies due to the increased blast radius, meaning Sirens will be less of a problem. Bloats are usually best handled with weapons that can decapitate them rather quickly. Rifles, high damage assault rifles, pistols, and so forth. This is because Bloats will stumble around if repeatedly headshotted, making them an unnecessarily elusive target. Overall, these Zeds, while not a particularly grave threat on their own, are a powerful force multiplier, and can make engaging other Zeds, especially large ones, a much more stressful endeavor. When a higher priority target isn't available for your perk, Sirens and Bloats should be your top concern, as again, they have a nasty habit of making bad situations much worse. In addition to dealing damage, their attacks will disrupt most players' ability to aim, or sometimes even fire, in the case of the Demolitionist. My last bit of advice would be to make sure Bloats and Sirens are at least getting a headshot or two pinged into them before they get too close, so there isn't a mad dash to kill them once they close in on your lines. I hope you found this video and these tips to be useful, and if you have any questions or anything to add, please feel free to leave it in the comment section below. Also feel free to subscribe or support the channel via a monthly YouTube membership or on Patreon. Check out my YouTube community tab to vote on the next Zed or Zeds we will cover, but until next time, happy hunting!